Welcome to our channel, where we explore the timeless wisdom of Sanatana Dharma. Today, we're discussing the four Purusharthas, a framework for balanced living that's surprisingly relevant to our modern lives. Visit AustriaViennaPuja.com for more resources and insights. Feeling pulled in every direction? Career demands more hours, family needs more attention, social media screams for engagement, and your spiritual life. Well, when was the last time you even thought about that? What if I told you that 5,000 years ago, the sages of Sanatana Dharma solved this modern chaos with a perfect system of balance? This ancient system is called Purusharthas, the four aims of human life. Unlike modern work-life balance that only considers two dimensions, this comprehensive framework addresses every aspect of human existence. These four aims aren't competing forces. They're complementary pillars designed to support a fulfilling life. Let's explore them. First is Dharma, your righteous duty and ethical foundation. Think of Dharma as the operating system on which all other aspects of life run. It's not rigid religious rules, but your authentic purpose aligned with cosmic order. For example, speaking truth is Dharma, so is performing work that benefits society while utilizing your unique talents. Second comes Artha, prosperity and resources. This isn't just money, but all resources needed for a dignified life. Education, shelter, healthcare, and yes, financial stability. The ancient texts were practical. Material resources create freedom to pursue higher aims. But notice the sequence. Artha follows Dharma, meaning wealth pursued ethically. Third is Kama, pleasure and desire fulfillment. This includes relationships, sensual pleasures, arts, and all joyful experiences. Contrary to myths about Sanatana Dharma being austere, it fully embraces life's pleasures, but in the right context. When built on Dharma and balanced with Artha, pleasure becomes enriching rather than depleting. Finally, Moksha, liberation and spiritual transcendence. This is freedom from suffering and the cycle of rebirth. While traditionally the ultimate goal, moksha isn't just for renunciates or afterlife. In daily life, it means freedom from psychological bondage, experiencing moments of pure presence, and gradual spiritual awakening. How does this ancient system apply today? When these aims conflict, as they inevitably will, Dharma guides your decisions. Consider these modern imbalances. Workaholic pursuing Artha while neglecting Kama and family relationships. Pleasure seeker focused only on Kama while ignoring Dharma and responsibilities. Spiritual bypasser using moksha to escape worldly duties and contributions. The Purusharthas teach that different life stages naturally emphasize different aims. Student life focuses on Dharma, householder stage balances Artha and Kama, while later years shift toward moksha. Today, take 5 minutes to assess which of these four aims you're neglecting. Is it ethical purpose, material resources, joy and pleasure, or spiritual growth? In our next video, we'll explore Dharma more deeply, the foundational principle that enables the other three aims to flourish. Welcome to this exploration of an ancient system that might just be the answer to our modern chaos. Look around you. We're drowning in options and obligations. Our careers demand more hours. Our devices ping with constant notifications. Social media presents curated lives we feel pressured to match. And somehow we're supposed to find time for health, relationships, and spiritual growth. Is this just the price of modern living? Or have we lost something essential that our ancestors understood? Today, we're diving deep into the Purusharthas, the four aims of life according to Sanatana Dharma. This 5,000-year-old framework wasn't created for simple agrarian societies. It was designed for the full complexity of human existence, making it perhaps even more relevant today than when it was first conceived. By the end of our time together, you'll have a practical system for making decisions, finding balance, and creating a life of meaning that integrates every dimension of your existence. The concept of Purusharthas first appears in the ancient Vedic texts, particularly in the Upanishads and later in the Dharma Shastras and Puranas. The word itself combines Purusha, person or consciousness, and Artha, aim or meaning, literally the aims of a human being. While many philosophical systems focus on a single ultimate goal, the Vedic seers recognized something profound. Human life has multiple legitimate aims that must be balanced rather than sacrificed. Initially, only 3 aims were identified: Dharma, righteousness; Artha, prosperity; and Kama, pleasure. Moksha, liberation, was added later as the tradition evolved, becoming what scholars call the Chaturvarga or Fourfold Path. What's fascinating is how this system developed across different schools of thought. From the ritualistic focus of early Vedic practice to the philosophical approach of the Upanishads, from the practical guidance of the Artha to the narratives in the Mahabharata and Ramayana, the Purusharthas framework has been continually refined. Unlike many Western philosophical systems that often create hierarchies and oppositions, material versus spiritual, duty versus pleasure, the Purusharthas framework integrates these seemingly contradictory aspects into a coherent whole. The relevance of this ancient framework becomes clear when we look at our current predicament. Studies show unprecedented levels of burnout, anxiety, and depression worldwide. A recent Gallup poll found that 76% of workers report experiencing burnout, while 28% say they feel it very often. But the crisis goes deeper. Philosophers and psychologists speak of a meaning crisis, a widespread sense that despite material abundance, many lives lack purpose and coherence. As traditional frameworks recede and consumerism rushes to fill the void, we're left with fragmentation. Work separate from family, pleasure divorced from purpose, spirituality disconnected from daily decisions. This fragmentation creates painful either-or choices: career advancement or family time, financial security or meaningful work, personal pleasure or social responsibility, spiritual practice or worldly engagement. The beauty of the Purusharthas system is that it refuses these false dichotomies. It offers a both-and approach where prosperity serves righteousness, pleasure is enriched by purpose, and spiritual liberation is found within worldly life, not by escaping it. Overview of the four Purusharthas system. Let's explore how these four aims work together as an integrated system. While we'll cover each aim in detail later, it's important to first understand their interrelationship. The traditional ordering is crucial. Dharma comes first, followed by Artha, then Kama, and finally Moksha. This isn't arbitrary. It reflects a profound understanding of how each aim supports the next. Dharma forms the foundation. Without ethical principles and a sense of duty, wealth becomes corrupting, pleasure becomes hollow, and spiritual pursuits lack integrity. When people pursue wealth, Artha, without the foundation of Dharma, we get corruption, exploitation, and environmental destruction. When they pursue pleasure, Kama, without the foundation of Dharma and appropriate resources, Artha, we get addiction, relationship problems, and emptiness. And when they pursue spiritual liberation, Moksha, without fulfilling their duties, Dharma, we get spiritual bypassing and escapism. What's remarkable is how this ancient system anticipated many modern psychological insights. Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, Martin Seligman's elements of well-being, even the United Nations measures of development, all echo aspects of the Purusharthas framework, but often lack its integration and completeness. Now, let's address some common misconceptions. Many outside observers have mischaracterized Indian philosophy as otherworldly, austere, or escapist. Nothing could be further from the truth. The Purusharthas framework is thoroughly pragmatic, embracing material prosperity and sensual pleasure as legitimate aims when pursued ethically and in balance. Even within the tradition, there have been extremes. Some embrace austerity and renunciation, viewing worldly aims as distractions. Others focus exclusively on ritual and social duties, missing the deeper spiritual dimensions. The genius of the Purusharthas system is its balanced middle path. Modern people from different walks of life applying the framework in various contexts. Today, people from all backgrounds are rediscovering this wisdom. Entrepreneurs are embracing dharmic business practices, therapists are incorporating these concepts into well-being models, and individuals are using this framework to make better life choices. Let's begin with Dharma, the most foundational and perhaps most misunderstood of the four aims. Often translated as duty or righteousness, Dharma is actually far more nuanced and comprehensive. At its root, Dharma refers to that which upholds or sustains both the individual and the cosmic order. It's the principle that maintains harmony in the universe and in human society. Examples from nature showing inherent Dharma: rivers flowing, sun rising, seasons changing. Everything in nature has its Dharma, its essential nature and function. The Dharma of fire is to burn, the Dharma of water is to flow and nurture. Similarly, humans have both universal dharmas and specific dharmas based on their unique capacities and circumstances. Dharma operates at multiple levels. First, there's Samanya Dharma, universal principles that apply to all humans, such as truthfulness, nonviolence, and compassion. These transcend cultural and historical contexts. Then there's Vishesha Dharma, specific duties based on one's stage of life and social role. The dharma of a student differs from that of a parent, which differs from that of a retiree. These contextual duties evolve as we move through life. Finally, there's Svadharma, your personal dharma based on your unique capacities, talents, and calling. This isn't assigned from outside but discovered from within through self-awareness and experience. Throughout history, figures who exemplified dharma have inspired generations. In the Mahabharata, Yudhishthira was called Dharmaraja for his unwavering commitment to righteousness even in the most challenging circumstances. Emperor Ashoka transformed from a brutal conqueror to a dharmic ruler after witnessing the suffering caused by his wars. And in modern times, Gandhi's adherence to truth and nonviolence represents dharma in action. Modern ethical dilemmas, business decisions, environmental choices, digital ethics. But how does dharma apply in our modern context? Consider the ethical challenges we face today. In business, dharmic principles guide fair treatment of employees, honest marketing, and sustainable practices. In our environmental choices, dharma calls us to consider not just our convenience, but the well-being of future generations. In the digital world, dharma guides our interactions, our information sharing, and our consumption habits. Research consistently shows that living according to ethical principles, what we might call dharmic living, leads to greater well-being, stronger relationships, and more cohesive communities. This isn't just ancient wisdom. It's confirmed by modern science. Let's look at some real-world examples. Meet Rajiv, an executive who refused to misrepresent his company's environmental impact despite pressure from superiors. Or Priya, who balanced caring for her aging parents with her professional responsibilities. Or Michael, who transformed his business model to prioritize community benefit alongside profit. How can you apply dharmic principles in your own life? Start by asking these questions when facing decisions. Does this action align with universal values like truthfulness and compassion? Does it fulfill my responsibilities to those who depend on me? Does it express my authentic gifts and capacities? And does it contribute to greater harmony rather than causing harm? Having established Dharma as our foundation, we now turn to Artha, often translated simply as wealth, but actually encompassing all forms of prosperity, resources, and material well-being. Contrary to stereotypes that portray Indian philosophy as ascetic or world-denying, the Purusharthas framework fully embraces material prosperity as a legitimate aim of human life. Ancient India was home to sophisticated economies, international trade networks, and remarkable material achievements. True wealth extends far beyond money. It includes education and knowledge, health and vitality, practical skills, supportive relationships, and access to resources that enable a dignified life. All of these are aspects of Artha. However, the key distinction in the Purusharthas framework is that Artha must be pursued in accordance with Dharma. Wealth creation should be ethical, sustainable, and beneficial to society, not just to the individual. The Artha Shastra, one of the world's oldest treatises on economics and statecraft, outlines principles for prosperity that balance individual enterprise with collective welfare. It discusses fair taxation, infrastructure development, consumer protection, and environmental conservation, topics that remain relevant today. Our modern relationship with material prosperity has become deeply problematic. Rampant consumerism, environmental degradation, exploitation of workers, and extreme inequality all reflect a pursuit of Artha divorced from Dharma. Fortunately, we're seeing a resurgence of dharmic approaches to prosperity. From sustainable business models to ethical investment practices, from fair trade to circular economies, many are rediscovering that meaningful prosperity must be aligned with ethical principles. On a personal level, managing Artha dharmatically involves several practices. First, earning through work that contributes value rather than exploiting others. Second, spending mindfully rather than compulsively. Third, saving prudently for future needs. Fourth, sharing generously with others. And fifth, making choices that consider environmental and social impacts. Research confirms what the ancient sages understood. Material prosperity contributes to well-being only up to a point. Once our basic needs are met, additional wealth brings diminishing returns in terms of happiness and life satisfaction. The real value of Artha lies not in accumulation for its own sake, but in the freedom and opportunities it creates. Consider how different people use prosperity as a foundation for meaningful living. Maya uses her financial security to pursue artistic expression that brings beauty to her community. Arun built a successful business that now employs dozens of people in dignified work. Sophia lives simply but uses her resources to support environmental causes she believes in. How can you approach Artha in your own life? Begin by clarifying your true needs versus wants. Develop skills and knowledge that create real value. Make conscious choices about consumption. Practice generosity as a regular habit. And invest in ways that align with your values while building future security. We now turn to Kama, the pursuit of pleasure, desire, fulfillment, aesthetic enjoyment, and emotional satisfaction. This third aim is perhaps the most misunderstood in Western interpretations of Indian philosophy. Far from rejecting sensual and aesthetic pleasure, traditional Indian culture celebrated beauty in myriad forms. From temple architecture to classical dance, from poetry to the arts of love. The famous Khajuraho temples with their sensual sculptures and the sophisticated principles of the Natya Shastra, treatise on performing arts, reveal a civilization that deeply valued aesthetic experience. Even the Kama Sutra, often reduced to a manual of sexual techniques, was actually a sophisticated guide to the art of living well, of which sexuality was just one component. It addressed the cultivation of cultural refinement, social skills, and harmonious relationships. The crucial point in the Purusharthas framework is that Kama should be pursued within the context of Dharma, ethical principles, and supported by appropriate Artha, resources. When pleasure is divorced from ethics or pursued beyond our means, it leads to suffering rather than fulfillment. There's a profound difference between refined pleasure and crude indulgence. Refined pleasure involves mindfulness, appreciation, moderation, and consideration for others. It heightens awareness rather than diminishing it. Crude pleasure, by contrast, is characterized by excess, mindlessness, and often exploitation. Modern neuroscience showing brain activity during different types of pleasure. Modern neuroscience helps us understand why mindful pleasure is more fulfilling. When we engage deeply with experiences, whether tasting food, listening to music, or connecting with loved ones, different brain networks activate than during passive or compulsive consumption. The quality of attention we bring to experience shapes the quality of pleasure we derive from it. Today, we face unprecedented challenges in our relationship with pleasure. Digital technologies bombard us with stimulation designed to trigger dopamine releases. Addictive products are engineered to override natural satiety, and many modern pleasures isolate us, rather than connecting us with others and our environment. Applying the wisdom of Kama in modern life involves reclaiming conscious pleasure. This might mean unplugging from devices to be fully present with loved ones. It might mean savoring a home-cooked meal rather than eating mindlessly. It might mean creating or appreciating art that touches the heart. Or it might mean immersing yourself in natural beauty rather than artificial stimulation. Research confirms that certain types of pleasure, particularly those involving creativity, connection, and immersion in nature, contribute significantly to well-being, cognitive function, and social bonds. These aren't luxuries to feel guilty about, but essential elements of a flourishing life. Finding balance is key. Just as a musical composition needs both sound and silence, life needs both engagement and rest, both celebration and discipline. The rhythm of life involves knowing when to indulge and when to abstain, when to express and when to contain. How can you develop a healthier relationship with Kama? Practice bringing full attention to sensory experiences. Notice when you're using pleasure to escape rather than to engage. Cultivate discernment about which desires lead to lasting fulfillment versus temporary relief, and create rituals that honor pleasure while maintaining mindful awareness. We arrive now at Moksha, liberation, spiritual freedom, and self-realization. Traditionally considered the highest of the four aims, moksha represents the culmination of human potential. While moksha is often associated with ascetics who renounce worldly life, The Purusharthas framework suggests that liberation can and should be pursued within the context of an engaged life. Moksha isn't just for those who retreat to mountains or monasteries. It's available to all of us in the midst of our everyday experience. Different philosophical schools understand moksha in different ways. For some, it means liberation from the cycle of rebirth. For others, it represents freedom from the suffering caused by ignorance and attachment. For still others, it signifies union with the divine or realization of one's true nature. Traditional texts describe multiple paths to liberation. Jnana Yoga emphasizes knowledge and inquiry. Bhakti Yoga focuses on devotion and surrender. Karma Yoga centers on selfless action. Raja Yoga utilizes meditation and self-discipline. These aren't mutually exclusive, but represent different temperaments and approaches. Interestingly, modern psychology has identified states and experiences that parallel aspects of moksha: flow states where self-consciousness dissolves in complete engagement, peak experiences characterized by unity and profound meaning, and self-transcendence where one's sense of separate identity expands to include larger wholes. What does moksha look like in everyday life? It might be the teacher who works with full presence, unaffected by praise or blame. It might be the parent who loves unconditionally without expecting anything in return. It might be the artist who creates from a place of inner freedom rather than ego gratification. Research on contemplative practices reveals their transformative potential. Long-term meditation practitioners show differences in brain structure and function, including enhanced attention, emotional regulation, and compassion. Studies of psychedelic-assisted therapy suggest that even brief experiences of expanded consciousness can catalyze lasting positive changes. At its core, moksha represents freedom from the psychological bondage created by attachment, fear, craving, and ignorance. This doesn't mean not caring or not desiring. It means not being controlled by our cares and desires, not being driven by unconscious patterns and compulsions. In practical terms, moksha might mean freedom from digital addiction through mindful technology use. It might mean freedom from unhealthy emotional patterns through self-awareness and compassion. It might mean freedom from limiting beliefs about yourself and others through inquiry and expanded perspective. There are accessible practices that support the journey toward inner freedom. Meditation cultivates awareness of thoughts and emotions without being controlled by them. Self-inquiry allows us to question limiting beliefs and assumptions. Mindfulness brings us into the present moment where much of our suffering dissolves. And service to others helps us transcend self-centeredness. People from all backgrounds report moments of liberation. The executive who learned to function without being driven by anxiety. The parent who discovered unconditional love beyond expectations. The artist who creates from a place of spontaneous joy rather than striving. These aren't supernatural achievements, but natural expressions of human potential. Now that we've explored each of the four aims, let's consider how they work together as an integrated whole and how their emphasis shifts through different phases of life. In the traditional system of ashramas or life stages, different aims naturally take precedence at different times. The student phase, brahmacharya, emphasizes dharma through learning ethical principles and developing character. The householder phase, grihastha, balances dharma, artha, and kama through family life, career, and community engagement. The retirement phase, vanaprastha, shifts toward moksha while maintaining social connections. And the renunciation phase, sannyasa, focuses primarily on moksha. While these traditional stages may not map perfectly onto modern life, the underlying principle remains valid. Our focus naturally shifts as we move through life. Young adults typically focus on establishing career and relationships, artha and kama. Middle age often brings a deepening commitment to contributing to others, dharma. And later life frequently involves greater contemplation and spiritual exploration, moksha. Inevitably, these aims sometimes come into conflict. What happens when the pursuit of wealth, artha, seems to conflict with ethical principles, dharma? What about when family responsibilities, dharma, limit spiritual practice, moksha? Or when career advancement, artha, reduces time for relationships and enjoyment, kama? The Purusharthas framework offers a clear principle for resolving these conflicts. Dharma takes precedence. When faced with a choice between financial gain and ethical integrity, Dharma guides us to choose integrity. When career opportunities conflict with family responsibilities, Dharma helps us weigh our various duties. When personal pleasure conflicts with the welfare of others, Dharma points toward consideration for the greater good. At the same time, the application of these principles needs to be tailored to individual circumstances. For some, family responsibilities may be their primary Dharma. For others, their professional work or creative expression might be central. The framework provides guidance while honoring the uniqueness of each person's path. Balance exists not just across a lifetime, but within shorter cycles. Each day might include time for productive work, Artha, meaningful connection, service to others, Dharma, and contemplative practice, Moksha. Each week might include both intense activity and restful renewal. Each year might include both productive periods and retreat time. Many people find that intentional rituals help maintain this balance. Morning meditation or prayer centers the day in deeper values. Regular family meals nurture connection. Meditation practices provide rhythm between work and rest. Annual retreats or pilgrimages create space for reflection and renewal. As we conclude, let's remember that the four Purusharthas offer not a rigid formula, but a flexible framework for creating a life of meaning, purpose, and balance. The specific application will look different for each person, based on their unique circumstances, capacities, and calling. We've explored how Dharma provides the ethical foundation for all other pursuits. We've seen how Artha represents not just wealth, but all resources that support a dignified life. We've discovered how Kama encompasses refined pleasure and aesthetic enjoyment within ethical boundaries. And we've contemplated how Moksha offers freedom from psychological bondage, even in the midst of engaged living. What might your first steps be in applying this wisdom? Perhaps you'll begin with self-reflection, assessing which aims you're emphasizing and which you're neglecting. Perhaps you'll create simple daily practices that honor all four dimensions of life. Or perhaps you'll reconsider major life decisions in light of this holistic framework. In our upcoming videos, we'll explore each of these aims in greater depth. We'll examine Dharma through the lens of ethical challenges in modern life. We'll investigate Artha in relation to career choices and financial decisions. We'll explore Kama in the context of relationships and creative expression. And we'll delve into Moksha through practical spiritual practices. How do you balance these four aims in your own life? What challenges do you face in applying these principles? What insights have you gained from your own experience? Let me leave you with this verse from the Upanishads. From the unreal, lead me to the real. From darkness, lead me to light. From death, lead me to immortality. This journey toward truth, light, and freedom is what the four Purusharthas ultimately guide us toward. May your path be blessed with Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha in perfect balance. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the Purusharthas. If you found this video insightful, please like, share, and subscribe for more content on Sanatana Dharma. Visit AustriaViennaPuja.com for additional resources and to stay updated on our latest videos.